pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Alderman Bowman.
Present.
Alderman Dahlman.
Present.
Alderman Milner. Present. Alderman Coburn.
Here.
Alderman Dickerson.
Here.
Alderman Long.
Here.
Alderman Stoll.
Here.
Alderman Stafford.
Present.
Mayor Hassey.
Present, and we do have a quorum. Good evening, everyone. We do have a couple ceremonial things tonight. First, it is going to read a proclamation for National FFA Week. Whereas FFA and agricultural education provide a strong foundation for the youth of America and the future of the food, fiber, and natural resource systems, and whereas FFA promotes premier leadership, personal growth, and career success among its members, and whereas agricultural education and FFA ensure a steady supply of young professionals to meet the growing demands in the science, business, and technology of agriculture, and whereas the FFA motto, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve, gives direction and purpose to these students who take an active role in succeeding in agricultural education, and whereas FFA promotes citizenship, volunteerism, patriotism, and cooperation. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville, I, Mayor Brian Hassig, do hereby designate the week of February 20th through the 27th, 2016 as FFA Week in Harrisonville. And I believe we have some members of FFA joining us this evening to accept the proclamation. We can get them all in here. Good crowd tonight.
Always a great crowd.
Oh my gosh, I know this young man. I know this young gentleman too. Just go right down the line here. Thank you for coming.
You're fine.
Thank you for coming. You want a second one? Okay. Thank you for coming this evening. And I'm going to jump right up here. Would you like to hold that, please?
Back up just a little bit. All right.
You can get us all in, or do we need to group up?
All right. Everybody just squeeze in just a little bit, especially if you're on the ends. Okay. Give us a nice smile on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And one more time. Nice smile. Thank you. Did you get it?
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you all. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Chief, I believe you have our next item.
Thank you, Mayor. Mabel, if I could ask you and any of your family members that want to come up. Tonight we are honored to officially retire a badge of one of our fallen officers here at Harrisonville. Harrisonville Police Officer Chandler Sumner died in the line of duty on February 13th, 1991. Officer Sumner was very committed to the community. He was a very community-oriented person. I've met with Mabel a few times, and she told me a few stories, showed me some articles from the newspaper. He was an upstanding citizen and a well-known police officer for us. He was very involved in his church, his community, and even though the local skating rink that many enjoyed. Officer, obviously the mayor.
I have to say, I learned a lot from Chandler Sumner. He was very phenomenal.
Officer Sumner was a devoted Christian as well, and he often spoke of the Lord when he arrested people and tried to get them to stay away from the devil and join the Lord's team. So, Officer Sumner proudly served the citizens of Harrisonville for 4 years prior to his death. Later this spring, the Harrisonville Police Department will add Officer Sumner to our scholarship list with Officer Ward and Officer Marler. And that is awarded to a high school senior who is looking for a career in law enforcement. This time, Mabel would like to say a few words. She has a cold, so bear with her.
I don't know what else to say except that Chandler would be so pleased to know this, and it would be a blessing to him. He would just be pleased to know that you're helping, it would be helping others to go into the police work. And he loved the city, he loved our state, and he loved his country, and he loved the Lord. And he was a good guy, all around.
Thank you, Mabel. On behalf of the Harrisonville Police Department, I'd like to give you this in honor of Chandler's sacrifice. Officer Sumner, thank you for your service and ultimate sacrifice for the citizens of Harrisonville. For that, your badge number 2255 shall forever be retired. Officer Sumner, thank you for a job well done. May you continue to rest in peace and protect us from above. God bless you.
Thank you, Chief. He was definitely one of a kind. At this time, I will move on to public participation, and I will open the floor to anyone who has anything to bring before the board that is not already on our regular agenda. Can I step forward at this time?
I guess I'm the only one.
We'll give you a second to get here. If you could give the clerk your name and address.
What's your name?
I've been before the board before on the same situation. We have panhandlers in this town. I mean, you don't like it, you don't like it, you don't like it, I don't like it. I'm here to oppose that we put a stop to it. Simple. We can't put a stop to it because they have freedom of speech. True. Excuse me. 2 nights ago, I witnessed an almost head-on accident in Walmart parking lot due to a panhandler getting a $1 bill from them. One of the cars didn't see the car in front of him stop, stepped on the gas, other car come around, almost hit head on. This happens a lot. These men are not in need. They are a scam. They drop them off at every, usually your heavier, your late weekends, what I call them. My wife doesn't like to sit there and watch this man staring down. You don't like it, I don't like it. What I propose is that they have to have a permit to do so in this town. Of course, Harrisonville does have means to help these people, other than standing there and waiting for the $1 bills. I have personally chased these guys for 10 years, so I know what they're doing. What they're doing in the law book is theft by deception. Same thing as credit card fraud. They park their car in one Walmart parking lot, tell you, I'm down on my luck, I need your $1. They don't pay tax on that $1. Watch the man go from the corner of the road to the gas station, buy a 12-pack of beer and a carton of cigarettes, pay with $1 bills. Okay. All we have to do is make sure that they have a permit to do so. Permit doesn't have to cost them a dime, but they have to leave who they are and where they're from with this board, so we know what kind of criminals are here. Last time I did this, 2 years ago, I've been sick. We did a pretty good job. Basically, all I want is police contact with these individuals, because they don't want that. And if they find out that police are going to make contact with them every time they're here to do this, they won't do it. They'll go away. They did for about a year. And now that we haven't had the police contact with them, they're coming back. The bunch that I'm watching now is out of Butler. They're a bunch of guys that have collecting disability, and there's 5 or 6 of them, one of them even in a wheelchair. They usually take that guy into the city and put him on the corner. How is that? Then they come back and they split all this money up. But because Harrisonville does have means to help the homeless, we should do something to stop it. Like I said, all we have to do is make police contact with it. That's all we have to do. It doesn't cost us anything but our police time. You know, they run a background check on them, you'll find how many criminals we really got in here. Last time we did it, they picked up several of them on outstanding warrants. So, you know,
If I'm correct, the way it stands now, they have to step onto a public roadway doing this function, as long as they're staying on private property or the island or whatever, we are not,
Not the island.
or
Not the island.
No.
the island is of the actual parking lot
They have to
itself.
stay on the sidewalk.
and they don't. You know, I mean, you can say, I have video of it, would you like me to go get the video? You know, I have pictures of.
Oh, no, there's no disputing that they're out there, I mean, it's not, yeah.
But what we
that's
need to do is stop them, and I understand where the law works, they have the freedom of speech. But we do have reasons, you know, ways to help them. And like I said, to get rid of them, all we need to do is make police contact, most of them, and they'll go away. And once they know that they can't do that in Harrisonville, they will quit coming back. They did it. We run them off for over a year that I never seen one. And I get phone calls from people all the time because they know I'm here. And we just need to quit it. You know, Harrisonville, now we got this nice interchange out here. Do you want to sit there on that nice interchange and look at somebody begging for a dollar bill that you know is parked with a better car than yours in that parking lot somewhere? I don't. And this is what I propose is we get some kind of permit, doesn't cost them anything, so they can't say, well, I can't afford that. All we need is your identification, so we know who you are. And that they know that PD will make contact with them. They will go away.
And sir, I don't pretend to remember everything that's happened in Harrisonville, but
Okay.
I don't remember a permit a year
No,
ago.
we never had-
No, they didn't have one, he's asking if that's
We never
something
had
to do
permit
with
then
the-
because the PD contact, we had this man right here, came in here and agreed that every time that I would call and let them know where the man was, the PD would make contact with him. We run him off, did we? You didn't have a long time, didn't have over a year that nobody made contact with.
Okay, so we didn't have this,
No.
you have to have, because I'm not aware of how you could require a permit before someone gets to exercise their right of free speech.
Like,
I'm
don't you
not-
have
I'm
to
not-
have a permit in this town to have to put a banner up?
To operate a business,
To put a banner up?
only certain kinds, sir. If it is a public, if it is, for example, an election, you don't have to have a permit for that.
Okay.
We have a sign ordinance where if it's a commercial sign, it can be, we can require a fee for a sign. If it is a commercial sign, if it is not, if it is public speech, then not necessarily so. I don't believe that's correct.
Well, I know that there's a
But-
traveler out there that she's been traveling for 5 or 6 years, and it's the same man all the time. And when I call him on it, and I tell him, hey, I got PD on the way, he'll run to his car and take off.
So you say prior we had, you would call and the
Right,
officers would
and the
go
officers
and
made contact with him, and they didn't want the contact, so they would stay away. You know, this weekend, they're everywhere. Just a warm weekend, they're out there making money. You know, and I think if we could figure out somewhere, we cannot get on their freedom of speech. Okay, and most of them have gotten around that to where they're not actually asking for money. You know, the last one I seen said he was a traveler, please help. That's all he asked. But if we could make them, that's all PD has to tell them. Hey, you have to have a permit to do that here. Don't worry to get around, they'll stop coming.
what you're saying, I mean, since it's a
I will
freedom of
look,
speech
but I've
issue.
never, ever heard of being able to successfully require a permit, even if it's at no cost. Because if it's your right to free speech, you have the right to free speech.
Right. See, when I first started this
Issue
issue-
application of a permit.
Yeah, when I first started this issue, it was Green River ordinance. And you and I spoke of the Green River ordinance, and it didn't cover Panhandle. So we need to come up with something or do something, so all we have to do is make contact with them and they will go away. Because they don't want this. What they're doing is illegal to begin with. You know?
Have you ever, I mean, with the internet now, I mean, you can go out and Google anything. Have you ever gone out and seen if there's other cities that
Oh, yeah.
have come, I mean,
There's- I know
there's
that-
other solutions
I
they've
just
come
heard
up
of
with?
one recently that did this.
Uh-huh.
Can't tell you who it is. One of them back east. It might be Columbia. It might even be Columbia, but I don't know how they've done it, you know. But I would leave that up to that man right there.
I mean, that can be something we can look at as well. How have other, I mean, that's always a great resource for other cities and how they have dealt with similar problems.
Right.
You know, because to solve the problem, we can't send an officer out there every single time. I
Exactly.
mean, that, you know, they're gonna realize at some point that they can't do anything to me. They're just coming to bother me and then
Right,
they'll,
but most of these guys have records.
Right.
They have reasons that they don't want to make police contact.
Right.
So they will stay away. And that's basically, all I'm asking is to keep the criminals out. We got the truck stops we're building out here that are gonna draw enough criminals.
Okay.
You know, and then we got panhandles. I'd like to get something accomplished before those truck stops get established.
But yeah, let us see what some other cities have
Please
done
do.
and see if we can generate some ideas. Maybe, I mean, if they've got something in place that's worked, that's, I mean,
Right.
there
That's
you
all you
go.
gotta do. Like I said, I just heard recently somebody,
Okay.
like I said, it might have been Columbia, Missouri that
Okay.
had that done.
Okay.
I think a couple in Iowa, but a Tumble maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't, like I said, I've been sick. I'm
Oh.
just curing over cancer, so.
Well,
But we wanna get things done, you know? Like I said, you don't like it, I don't like it, you don't like it. So let's put a stop to it.
well, we will definitely see what we can find out there and go from there.
Fine. Thank you for
Good.
your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Seeing no one, I will close the public participation and we will move on to the approval of the minutes. First, we have the regular meeting from February 1st, 2016.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Milner and a second from Alderman Coburn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Minutes from the special meeting, February 10th, 2016. I'm sure you need lots of time to read those. I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Dahlman and a second from Alderman Bowman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to our agenda items. Council Bill 016.
Council Bill 016 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 700, Section 700-230 of the City Utilities Ordinance regarding the use of well water in the city of Harrisonville, Missouri. First reading, Council Bill 016.
And Steve, I want to point out, I had to read my own ordinance last meeting. It was horrible. So I just wanted to point that out.
Glad to be of service.
I second the report. This is actually second reading. We had first reading of this at a prior meeting, and we had a couple of questions that Director DeLuca is going to address for us. And so this is actually second reading
That's right.
of the ordinance. I'm sorry about that.
I missed out. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening. What this simply does is add one exception to this ordinance. It basically states that you can drill a well and use well water on parcels of land located outside of Harrisonville's water service area and used for industrial production purposes. So basically, if you need water for a production, you can use well water.
Where's the water go?
Our sanitary system, or it could go into product, or it could be evaporated. It depends what the production is.
You say it can go into our sanitary system?
Oh, yes. Now, our sanitary, it has standards, and pretreatment may be necessary, may not be, just depends.
We already have in place a program for foundation drainage and septic and, oh my God. Water in your basement, can't be pumped in the sanitary sewer right now. They're pumping in all the houses that drain in. And I believe that was a DNR request. And so how are we gonna be able to justify groundwater from a well being put into the sanitary sewer when we can't do it in town, in the houses here? DNR said that we have to separate groundwater and stormwater from the sanitary sewer.
They would have to comply with DNR, and that would
means
be
they
true
can't
without.
pump their well water into our sewer system.
You can put well water into the sewer system.
Then what's the difference between groundwater and well water?
And again, is not your sewage rates determined on your water usage,
Yes.
which is determined by what they buy, not what they pump out of the ground?
Jerry, did you have something to interject?
If I could respond, it is processed water. They can't pump well water directly into the sewer line. It would have to be processed water that would normally go into the sewer. If they were getting city water, or not city water, but District 9 water or District 4 water, that water would go into the sewer if it goes through the process. All this does is allow them to use well water as part of their processing water.
I understand.
And We would also require that it be metered, so we know how much water is going into from the process, is going into the sewer line.
Okay, I understand that, but we have a thing in place right now that we can't take groundwater from a sump pump to be pumped into our sanitary sewer from a basement.
It's not processed though, is it?
So,
No, but neither is well water.
No, he said it will be processed
Yeah.
water. You can't just take it straight out of the well and put it in the sewer. What they're saying is it'll go through the well, go through a process, and then go out into the sewer.
It'll be
The
part
sump
of,
pumps would not be a processed water,
it'll be part of the production process,
right?
whatever that process
Who will
would
be,
be.
who will be paying for this metering?
Customer does, just like they do in all our cases.
and then this is in Water District 4, is that right?
9.
9? And
Well,
water-
now this would apply to all water districts.
Okay.
Now, to be clear, this is one of those things we're trying to do to get employers here that have jobs. And
I'm not
right
arguing
now,
that, I'm just
right
asking
now
the
we
water
have
district.
2 of them here, one of them's in 4, actually both of them are in 9 right now.
Mhm.
Not to say that it wouldn't happen in 4, but the odds are that if we get something like that, it would be number 9.
No, those are the only 2 that we would potentially, in the areas we have available. I mean, I guess that's what I'm thinking is how many water districts could we potentially bump into with this? I mean, we kind of had the discussion on,
Keep in mind, this water district with this project that we're talking about right now, keep in mind that they are aware of what's going on since they're a large water user. And they've been in all the discussions and things like that, and they know that we're bringing this forward. So, as for the number of water districts, I guess it's possible maybe 2 or 3. The odds are it'd probably, at least in the next 10, 20 years, I'd be surprised if it really affected number 4 at all. Would be my thought.
I mean, because my concern would be if we set it for any parcel, which like I said, I don't know how many those are, I mean, that we have that are, would fall into this category is, my understanding that the water district in the area has first right to sell water, am I correct? I mean, do those other districts allow wells? I mean, can somebody out there in those areas that are served by those districts put a well in if they want water? I mean,
That is something that's generally left up to cities and counties to determine.
so the county, what does the county have in place? I mean, does the county have anything in place for, I guess what I'm wanting to be sure is we're not we don't ever intrude on somebody's, we pass this as is, and then somebody else is saying, well, hey, wait a minute, we wanted to sell that water, what are they doing out there drilling a well on that property? Well, the city said we could do it. Well, they don't service that area. I just want to be sure that's not something we would bump into. I mean, if we're going to put it on any area, I mean, if we know Water District 9 is not, their understanding, they know what's going on,
With
okay,
our
that's great.
current projects, when the discussions came up, I would have thought that they would have said,
Mhm.
hey, we have a problem here. But there was no issue that was brought up during the discussions.
They like primarily residential, they don't like commercial anyhow, correct?
Some of them are that way. Now, District Number 9 has put in some good-sized lines, which, as a city, I very much appreciate. That being said, these are very large users. And, like, for example, if one of them came into the city limits, there's some of them we could not serve, and we would appreciate it if they use well water. And for them, very large users, without getting specific, it a lot of times could be blessings if they want to do that.
Now, Rick, something I'd like to have, again, goes back to, we can relate this to our discussion earlier, can we have something on file from the water district that says, we understand, this user would be using well water. A lot of things, Jerry, you ran into this with old sewer lines, it was handshake agreements. Well, somebody looks back, how did this happen? Well, 20 years from now, somebody looks back and says, how did this happen? Well, we've got it right here in the file, how this happened. Everybody's aware of the discussion, just something to have for record purposes, so we're not, it could be with the ordinance that, just an email or something that says, yeah, we are fine with this, we've been in the discussions.
Would there be something legal about this? We're stepping on somebody's way of making a living by drilling a well in another water, allowing them to use an alternate source of water in another water district, could they come back on us if this passes and say that they're, I mean, is that a possibility? I mean, so if we decide to do this all over the city and everybody drills their own well, how are we gonna sell water? I mean, that's
It's
basically
outside of our
what's happening.
limits.
It's outside of our limits, it's also for industrial production purposes only. A good argument for this would be, let's say we land this particular company, they're still using a couple few 100,000 gallons of water, maybe every day. I believe that was the period of time. If it doesn't come here, they're selling nothing.
That'd have to be a good well.
If they locate on this site, they will sell a whole lot of water, probably, and positive it's more than any other customer they have, and it would be very significant.
Well, that spawns another good question, Rick, is there that much water out there?
Yes.
I don't know what's out there.
There
I
is.
I assume somebody has looked into that.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a given, but.
when they do the analysis, they really get into it, so.
Just to kind of bring us back, this ordinance does not impact the sewer utility at all, because whether a customer gets their water from a water district, from the city, from some sort of collection system that they have, rooftop rainwater, whatever source they have for their water, the sanitary sewer requirements and expenses are the same. No matter how it gets into our treatment system, it still has to, it has to meet the, any pre-treatment requirements if they have certain levels of pollutants already in it, and it has to be, measured and paid for. So it doesn't really matter what the source of the water is, so a well doesn't impact that any. The city is not encouraging or discouraging, we're just removing a potential roadblock to development in areas that we are not allowed to serve. If the water district, or if the county, or if the state through the Department of Natural Resources has regulations in that area that's outside of the city's water service area that they want to enforce on the drilling of wells, the customer still has to be subject to all those. We're just saying that this would not be an obstacle to that. We wouldn't be prohibiting one potential source of water in an area that we're not allowed to serve anyway.
So that I understand you, that's what I was thinking when I read this. Just because if we vote this through does not mean that they won't necessarily have to buy water from 9 or from 4. It's just saying we really don't care who you get it from.
Yeah, it's not our,
So if 9 has a right, or 4 has a right, or whoever has a right, it's still up to them to enforce their right. We're just saying.
we don't have a prohibition on that in areas that we cannot serve.
Okay.
I guess another option,
Can you use your mic?
sorry.
That's
It
all
just
right.
gives them options. I mean, I think that's great, great attraction piece.
Rick, Stephen, Paul.
It's one of those things you have to think about how you say it, because you don't want to give something away confidential.
Okay.
Well, this ordinance is not specific to any particular development.
Right.
Yes, that is
Project.
true.
This would apply to all areas of the city that are within the city limits, but outside of our water service area. And it doesn't matter whether there's a development plan for it, a project proposed for it, or what districts might be served.
And sometimes there's reasons within their process of production that they don't want water with, say, chlorine or fluoride or any of that in that. And sometimes there's reasons for that. That's probably as far as I'll go with that one. So,
It's all right. Are there any further questions or discussion? All right, thank you, Rick.
motion? Do we-
Well, we had the second reading, so she'll do,
Oh, roll call.
yep, yep, it's all right.
Alderman
you.
Stafford,
Yes.
Alderman Coburn,
No.
Alderman Stoll,
Aye.
Alderman Long,
No.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
No.
Alderman Bowman,
Aye.
Alderman Alderman Dahlman.
Aye.
All right, so Council Bill 016 becomes ordinance 03353.
Can I just ask a question? Can we ask a question at this point?
No, we need to move on to the next item, please.
All right.
Digest your findings and recommendations.
Getting ready to take a bite of a cookie.
Oh, well, sorry, you could have waited if you needed to take a bite. of your
Sorry,
cookie.
Jerry, you gotta hurry.
Take a bite out of you then.
All right. At the previous meeting, we had talked about the issues with the digester. And because of the emergency nature, we decided to do a design build. Design build is where the contractor and engineer take responsibility. All the risk is on them, and they provide a price. So the contractors, Cass Constructors, and Burns & McDonald have looked at the floor and have decided, they did a couple, 3 or 4 areas where they cut out of the floor, and they found that the clay underneath is like Play-Doh and is substantial enough to hold up the walls that they're gonna go in and just replace the floor. Now they'll have to be able to tie it back into the walls. We're looking at putting in an under drain system where we can pump the water out so that this issue won't happen again. There'll be a series of PRVs, more than 6, somewhere in the neighborhood of 14, 16 PRVs. What they've indicated is their price is $877,000 to do this work. I've scheduled a meeting with Burns & McDonald and Cass to go over their pricing, because all they did was send me the lump sum price to look more closely at their unit costs, where their risks are, see if there's some places where we can assume some of that risk, and hopefully reduce that cost down.
So we're kind of looking at the top dollar right now.
Where this is where they assume all the risk.
Okay.
So that would mean if they got in there and all of a sudden there was a problem, that's on their nickel. And the city does not have any risk. But if we want to get the price down, we're going to have to assume some of the risk. And so you start going, all right, how much risk are we willing to assume? And so it's just, we have to see what their numbers are, what their concerns were, what we can do to mitigate those concerns if we want to mitigate those concerns. And my plan would be come back to the board at their next regular meeting with a final contract for them to do the work. This has, I don't know exactly how much the design fee, but this includes the design fee, which is well over $100,000 for the project.
Now, this was kind of we had 3 options, which I think option A was you throw that away before you ever get started. So this was kind of the middle.
This was the middle
option, but really first option because the first one was not working.
The other one was just take the existing floor and just build on top of it, and.
So this is kind of the best case scenario that we had hoped for anyway.
Right,
That
this was, and
they
we had
used the
estimated something like $1 million.
Okay.
And so it came in less than $1 million, but it's almost $900,000. It's still pretty substantial. So we're just, Eric and I are just gonna be with them and try and see where the costs are, if there's any further negotiations we can do.
Well, still cheaper than rebuilding a whole new one, which.
It certainly is.
So the sun is shining on us today for.
Well, and like I said, the nature
If
of
you want to look
this,
at it that way, I mean,
nature
we wouldn't want it breaking down, but at least it was not, complete.
we couldn't go
tear
through,
out.
if we wanted to do a traditional design and bid it out, would require us to provide a lot more geotechnical information, to get the engineer more information, and it'd take a much longer period of time. So.
Okay.
Sure, Reed, sorry, question. this, I know you said this is kind of their initial lump sum base price, we never really got into it, but let's say we use this pricing model. Trying to think how to word this delicately. Is this a bid or a price?
This is, it's a design build, and so this is their price to design and build, rebuild the floor.
So if nothing changes, Josh, this is what we would pay. What
This is
Jerry's
what we
saying
pay.
is that they will try to now work to find ways to bring this price back down.
I'm just,
Because,
not my first
Josh.
construction project, and
well,
They'll be able to
there's a
do it
big
without,
difference between the bid and the price.
right, no, and, but this is, this is where they assume 100% of the risk.
So if it comes in, if it's more than what they anticipate, they assume
Yeah.
that risk.
Or if
Right.
the walls collapse completely while they're putting it together,
That's
that's their risk.
That's
Walls-
their,
Yeah.
it's gonna be their problem.
That's the big risk. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some prices in there when we get into the details of what goes into this. There'll be unit prices and that will be, subject to whatever the final quantities are. But this would be their not to exceed price. We may be able to drill it down some. And we won't know that until after we get into more detailed discussions with them.
Gotcha.
And we'll see whether there's unit costs that we're gonna be able to.
That's all the piping and all the air, things.
Well, that's, the assumption is they're reusing, because all that piping,
It's like
and,
4 or 5 years old.
pardon?
That part's still fairly.
Yeah, I mean, the plastic pipe that's down there is fine. We had them replace the membranes. That was part of that aeration contract that the board looked at a couple of meetings ago where we replaced the membranes. So they've already been in and I think they've already done it, is my understanding, so. Hopefully I'll be back at the next meeting with a better price. Still hoping they assume all the risk and, but we can get it done for a little cheaper. One of the issues we have because of the cost, at $900,000, we don't necessarily have $900,000 available to us. So one of the things we're gonna be looking at is how we might be able to finance this. And there are certain organizations, MPAU, which we're a member of, they have a program for projects like this where you finance over 10 years. So they can do it there. Marcella knew of a couple other agencies that provides financing. And so we just have to look how we,
What kind
what
of
would be the
interest
best
rates?
option.
What kind of interest rates are those financing options? Do you have any?
Well, I know MPUA, because I called and talked to them, they were around 4%. I mean, but I haven't looked at locally, if a bank would be willing to do something for us, or, I mean, we just really just kind of touched the surface. I don't know, Marcella, do you have anything else on the financing side?
We'll just explore those options and try to bring them to you with the best case scenario.
when we get a final from Burns McDonald, we'll be starting to get financing options then, right?
Correct.
Great.
I would think it might be helpful to hear, just for your working standpoint, on where you're at. You talk about possible things we could do to, maybe take some of that risk ourselves, and certain, it might be helpful if you kind of knew where at least everybody here kind of stood, because me personally, the project like this, I mean, I'm all about cutting costs, especially if it's something we've got financed. But with the nature of what we're doing there, I would probably be pretty adverse to taking on much of that risk ourselves. Where I would hate to be in a situation a few years from now where we finance a project that we have to go finance a repair for the repair. I'd much rather that be somebody else's problem, so.
But I'm somewhat of a skeptic, so I don't wanna just take the lump sum without
No,
seeing
I understand,
what the
absolutely.
unit costs
Right.
and the line items, so they can explain to me why they bid them high,
Right.
or they included a high price, saying, what were you assuming were gonna be the risk involved, and then we're gonna try and make a good educated choice, whether we want them to assume all that risk, or we should assume some, and how much reduction can we get? If we only get a small reduction, then I'm probably inclined not to accept any risk.
Right.
But if the reward is, there's a substantial change in price, we may want to consider it. But I wouldn't make that decision. I'd come back to you and have you make the decision.
The 800,000 is, they're assuming the risk, is that?
They are assuming the risk.
Right.
Yeah, if it collapses in on them and they have to start all over, it's their problem.
Okay.
That's why he's saying this is the highest price they'll give, but like he said, it would mean zero risk to
So
us.
that you're saying that they could come back with a lower price, but we would have to assume some of the risk or something. Is that what you're telling me?
That's how a design build works.
Okay.
I mean,
I
it's,
understand that. I guess I missed out on that first part.
Yeah, what he would do is if they see something that they think is very low risk for us in all reality, and we could cut $100,000 off the project, we would say, okay, we're willing to accept a little risk for
an
$100,000.
example, I talked to them about their design and putting in these French drains, so to speak, underneath. They were taking them outside underneath the foundation and coming up on the outside so that we could put a pump on it. But they were talking about all the difficulty they were gonna have getting under the footings, and I said, well, why don't you come up with that standpipe on the inside of it, next to one of our openings, and we can just drop the pump in at that location. They went, well, that'd be easier. Well, I said, well, how much does that cost? Because it was just, they were putting it at 14 feet deep, so they were talking about doing a lot of excavation, so it wouldn't slough in on the person down there doing the work. I mean, it's just things like that, where we just want to go in and find out how they approached it, and maybe there's a different way to do it. You know, I'd say $1,000, or I don't know, it's just try to do a little bit here and there and see what the value is.
That's a good route to go. I mean, it's something we have to fix. I mean, there's no getting around this. We have to fix this, and I like how, I mean, I don't like that it broke, but I like how it's come before us. It's not the worst case scenario, and so.
Well, I think we were real fortunate that,
I think so too.
when they did they cut out sections, they found clean gravel underneath. It was actually in better shape than what they had anticipated.
Good.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Jerry? All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to Alderman and committee reports. Alderman Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to compliment our staff. I think we grilled them pretty hard tonight. But Jerry, I want to thank you for your work on gathering the numbers and figures on the SRF. Thank you very much for that. I want to thank Rick. Rick spent some time with Alderman Dahlman and I this evening, just giving us some updates on some projects. And I wanted to have a question of Mr. Tholen. I'd like to know if you would advise the board where we're at on getting the contract signed from Joe Lauber to give us some direction on the 353 project at the hospital. Can you tell us, has that contract been signed?
We've given them the go-ahead this evening, or late this afternoon.
Okay. And then I would respectfully request that when he come, that he be able to have conversation with the entire board, whether that's in a work session or a special meeting. I think we'd all like to participate and be able to ask questions and hear his perspective on the Chapter 353 at the hospital. Okay.
Since he hasn't started his, the review yet, I don't know what it's going to say, so.
Understand.
So, when we get that, we'll bring it forth, everybody, and
Thank you.
have that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Alderman Dahlman.
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the ceremony for Officer Sumner. I recall when he served, and he was a really great officer to the city of Harrisonville. So I was glad the great attendance that we had here tonight for him. So it's a great honor. So.
Alderman Coburn.
Kind of surprised me when the gentleman come up about the panhandlers, because I've had several calls about the homeless, and back behind the real estate agency across from Commerce Bank, they have been concerned about the homeless people that are living back there, and the fact when it starts to get dark, they're kind of afraid to go out and get in the cars, the ladies, because those homeless guys are out there. And when I had the call, that one day, it was on a Thursday, and that evening I come up here to pick up my package. It was at 6:30, and it was getting dark, and I pulled in out there, And lo and behold, when I went to turn around my headlights, there was a guy standing back there in those woods with a blanket over his shoulder. And the next morning I drove out there and he was sitting in a lawn chair out there between the veterinary and the pawn shop. And this gave me kind of a little bit of a concern because we got drugs at the veterinary and we've got guns at the pawn shop and we've got these homeless people that are living out there, and it concerns me also in the fact that we've had some real cold nights. And my thoughts were, is being out there with a sleeping bag on the ground. I mean, yeah, when I go out with the boys, I'm only out for a weekend. I'm not living out there. And this kind of got me a little bit upset. And in going by that intersection out there, I can look out there and I can see his yard chair sitting out there with that sleeping bag in it during the day. I don't know where he's at during the day most of the time, but I know there's at least one individual out there. Some of the other calls that I've had from people, they're talking about at least 24 people that are living on the street. And it kind of concerns me. And when I hear that the panhandlers are coming back to town, that really egged me on tonight. So if our police department could do something and our attorney could do something about vagrancy or what have you, I don't know whether, the question was asked to me if the people that own that land, if they posted it, if the police department could do something about, doing something about, well, even if they were incarcerated, they'd have somewhere warm to sleep and a meal. And when you see these people eating out of the trash cans and garbage cans, it's upsetting. We have a mission across the street that feeds on Saturday. I know they put out pretty good food. They have their noon meal and they have another meal, I think at 5 o'clock on Saturdays most of the time. And yeah, you go down there, you have to listen to a sermon and some good music. But they don't ask you to pay anything. If you want to make a donation, yeah. And I don't know whether these people are going there or not because, to tell you the truth, I haven't been there for a long time. I went there one time and had a holiday meal. But I think it's something that we should look at in our town and be concerned about. And the second item I want to bring up, my full and fair disclosure on the utility rates, my request for the full and fair disclosure on the utilities. I don't want it to be taken lightly. I'd like to see it done again because it did answer a lot of people's questions in 2013. And I think we're proposing raising their rates again. I think it's something that will help kind of cushion the blow a little bit. And I'm sorry to be a pain in the, but that's where I'm at tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Alderman Milner.
Hey, I'm gonna ask my question now. I would like to know, Morris, David, and Clint, what is your opposition on the wells?
I don't think it's fair for us to do it without something in writing saying that the water district is in agreement with them using well water.
Yeah, I thought that's.
I mean, we have had problems in the past, not to bring up some of the old wounds, but we've had problems with the fire districts and the other things that has caused a lot of grief. And I think we need to work with our neighbors. And I don't think we're working with our neighbors when we don't have anything in writing on it.
But they have to be, if I understood correctly, they have to get approval from the water district also, correct?
That ain't the way I read it.
I don't think they do.
We're just releasing.
They don't have to.
We're
just saying they don't need,
We're just saying they can do it.
we're just saying that the ordinance says that they wouldn't have to get any approval from us.
From us,
That it
because
would
it would
be
be open.
allowed by us. Yeah.
And I think it allows, we're making a decision for another water district. Actually, we're making a avenue here for somebody to achieve another water district. Outside of the city limits in the county, you have to hook onto county water. You can't use a well. And we're going to allow, I don't care who it is, and I don't know who it is, but they're going to be able to use that. And I don't think that we grant someone that special use. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is, of course, I don't know where this is at, but if there's a sewer, if our sewer's involved, they could easily circumvent sewer charges. We won't have a meter. We won't know how much water is being pumped out of that well. And from what Rick's saying, this well must be one heck of a well for all the water that he says is gonna be pumped out of it. And I don't know, you weren't on the board then, but when we did discussions about Kansas City Water and alternate water sources for Harrisonville, one of the suggestions I made was drill some wells for secondary water sources. I was immediately tromped on saying, oh, no, we can't do that. The water's no good around here. It's alkaline, it's salt. It's all kinds of bad things that's in the groundwater. So if we're on the other end of it now, that could be flowing into our sewer system, then that means we're gonna have to treat more. And I'm not willing to take that risk until we know more about the project and what is going on. Just to okay a well, I'm not for that until I know more about what that well is gonna produce and what's gonna come out of it. The other thing is, like I tried to explain to you all, is groundwater out of somebody's basement and groundwater out of the well, I don't see any difference in that. And it's all, and we can't put it in a sanitary sewer right now, so how are we gonna be able to do it wherever this place is at? That's why I voted against it.
I was also told by, and I'm not gonna throw any names, but obviously I know a lot of city employees, because I've lived here my whole life.
Have you got a mic?
Oh, sorry. That in 1973, they set some sort of, and I may have misunderstood them, but there was some sort of deal about well water or drilling wells and where the water, where we could run our water lines and the water districts and all that. So that's why I said, or thought, we was going to go forward with getting something in writing.
And further,
From the districts.
Yes, from the districts.
and further, you may not remember, but we had problems, and we will not allow people with RVs to dump their sewer out at our sewer plant anymore. We do take water in, sewage in from Peculiar, but it used to be that the people that had RVs could go out there and pay to pump their RVs out in our sewer, but we stopped that.
Did you have anything else, Alderman?
No, that's good. I just was curious as to why no's were out there.
Alderman Dickerson?
Not much, except I echo about Chandler. Him and his dad and my dad, he worked for my dad on the telephone company, and I knew him since he was a little boy. And he played with my brother, and he was over at our house a lot when he was young. And so he was a very nice person. I'm proud to see we honored him. That's it.
Alderman Long?
Only thing I got to say is about the same deal with Chandler. Obviously, my dad's shop's right beside the Skate and Fit Center, so I was there a lot. I remember him well. And I mean, I think it was great what we did. And I'm sorry I wasn't here last Tuesday, but my wife was extremely sick, and so was I, so I apologize.
You didn't go to South America?
Hmm?
You didn't go to South America?
No. She had a migraine, it was horrible. Bad deal.
Alderman Stoll?
The only thing I can add about Chandler is my wife went to a women's self-defense that he put on, and she said she learned a lot from him. And could see that he was really dedicated to that, protecting the women and stuff. And that's, but I enjoyed what we did. I mean, it was very worthy of it.
Alderman Stafford?
Just a question. I had a request to see if we could get possibly an update of where the mechanic project's at. If there's any news to be had. If you don't, maybe an update next time? Or think we got anything?
Mechanic Street's been awarded. The MoDOT commissioners awarded it, I think 4 weeks ago. And so that project is moving forward. I haven't heard of I haven't been told when the pre-construction meeting is gonna be held, but
How did they get around it? The one time they were over budget on the bids, did they?
the bids
did they
came
manage-
in at 3.7, almost $3.8 million.
Uh-huh.
And they had estimated 3.2 million.
So they were managed to get
But
it. They worked out the kinks.
Miles Construction got was the low bid, and I would expect work to begin within 45 days.
So they haven't released a timeline or anything
They
yet?
they haven't released any timeline or,
Do we have a map? I think, maybe I might be imagining this, but I think we saw a map at one point of where the detours, how they're gonna lay out and everything.
I haven't not seen the detours. They had been talking about closing down phase one, which would be from Independence Street to the road that
King.
King,
No.
yeah. The King. And,
Just at the bottom of the hill there.
that would be closed down to allow them to do the work. They were gonna try and do, keep one lane open from King to Price when they do that work. But until we have the pre-construction meeting and the contractor lays out how his construction approach is gonna be done, I can only speculate at this point in time.
Okay. But we'll be able, I mean, I'm assuming we'll have all of those and their estimated at least time frame to when what will be shut down and everything, so we can get it out there.
Yes, we will.
Great.
We're gonna try and do work around the schools, so we don't take any sidewalks out during the school year, and
I don't think
that was the plan.
I don't think we'll get a lot of complaints if they're actually fixing that road.
Yeah, right.
People will be dancing in the streets, because it's been a long time coming.
I might go get a shovel and help them dig
Yeah.
something out.
I'll be right next to you. So, well, that's great news. Good deal.
I'll indicate there's some volunteer labor.
Okay. Yes, we're gonna have a work session out on Mechanic Street, everyone, and I mean work.
Bring your gloves.
Anything else, Alderman Sanford?
I think that's it, thank you.
All right, Mr. Administrator, your time in the spotlight.
Well, Morris and Jerry stole my thunder on the filter project. We're very, very excited to see that much overdue repair to our water treatment plant completed, so that's good. I too was very impressed and moved by the badge ceremony. Thank you so much, Chief. In a shameless bit of self-promotion, I think the city attorney has brought cookies for us celebrating 20 years as our city attorney, and we've grown together.
Got those some expensive cookies.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You've set a precedent now, after 20 years, you must supply cookies.
Every
so.
20 years, you're on the hook for that, so.
Try and do something nice and see what they do.
He expected no less.
I just hate the cookies.
Well, I've worked with him for about almost 16 of those 20 years, so he's been a good help to those of us on the staff, and I know given some good advice to our board, and is well respected in the legal community here and statewide in our City Attorneys Association, so we're happy to have him serving with us. Finally, we had originally thought about doing our budget reappropriations at this time, and we weren't quite ready, and some of the big questions we have are on our water and wastewater utility, what with the digester question still out there, and what we're going to be doing, or what direction we might be headed on water rates and improvements, and so we'll be bringing those to you in the very near future when they get all finalized, but we wanted to get them all done correctly and have an overall picture then of where we ended up 2015 and where we think 2016 is going to be with those reappropriations and any of those necessary budget amendments that we may be talking about on these big projects. That's all I've got, sir.
Very good. Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed the weather we've been blessed with the last week or so. Kind of a nice gift to get 70-degree weather in February. I want to echo the ceremony for Officer Chandler was very nice. I was very excited when I saw that come up because, like I said, I knew Chandler when he owned the skating rink. His brother Kelly and I were very close friends we're still good friends, but we worked at the rink together for several years, and I still enjoy going roller skating with my daughter, and many of the fancy tricks that I know how to do, I learned from watching Chandler Sumner, so he was a good guy. You don't get much better than him. So I want to thank the chief for that. I also want to thank the chief that it's been almost a year, and I get a lot of questions from people about, this or that, and a lot of it revolves around the police, and he's always made himself available to me. He's answered my questions and gives me good explanations. So Chief, I want to tell you, thank you for, your time when I call you, because usually I got somebody barking in my ear about something, and I'm going, I don't have any idea how to answer your questions. So he provides me the answer, which is always very helpful, so I want to thank you for that. Anyway, I know that we have some work ahead of us on this water treatment plant. I think we will get this and we will get it right. I mean, it's a big project, and it has a lot of pieces, and there've been some surprises, like Jerry said, and so we just we'll keep moving forward with that, and we will definitely get that worked out. I don't foresee us not getting it worked out. I really have nothing else this evening. Max, do you have anything for us tonight?
I'm all set.
Very good. Then we do not have executive session tonight, so I will open the race to who wants to.
We adjourn.
Let me flip a coin for the tiebreaker.
Second.